Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the I Work For Me podcast. I am today speaking to Charme. She is an educator, so a teacher at Fisher High, and she is also many other things. But I think the really exciting part of Charme is all of those exciting other things that she does. And not necessarily the teaching, although the teaching is a very important part, as we parents know, definitely in this time of corona crisis, where we are being educators badly. So I think it's going to be really interesting to chat and find out more about how Charme juggles everything that's on her plate. So without further ado, I think let's chat to Charme. So hello, Charme, and welcome.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and welcome to the show. And before we even jump into what it is that you get up to, quickly just tell us, as a child, your first memory of having a desire to be or do something. Do you remember what that was?
I was a bit of a performer, a drama child. So I used to love being in the limelight. I'm the youngest of three, and I think I needed to have this need to show and prove myself. So as a kid, I really wanted to be, first of all, I wanted to be in the circus. I think it was a big dream. And that actually carried on for quite long, embarrassingly so. I think I was in high school when I realized that circuses in South Africa is not such a big thing. So it wasn't like a childhood dream. It was actually quite for quite a long time. And then I always liked animals, and I loved working and training animals. So I wanted to be an animal trainer. And for me, I thought that would be something in the police force, or to be a vet, or to do something with animals. But then I realized if you want to be an animal trainer for a police force, you have to do the police work as well. And that's not what I wanted to do either. So then I just went like, I don't really know what I wanted to do. But yeah, I always joke with my kids in class. Then I say that I wanted to train dogs, and I'm busy doing that every day of my life. So they always think it's hilarious, because I actually did fulfill my dream in a way.
Well, I think you definitely did. Definitely in terms of the standing up and performing for an audience. I think a teacher does.
I'm in a circus
every day.
It's
a circus. Absolutely.
And I got all of those things.
Exactly. And teachers and not teachers, but rather teenagers can definitely be wild animals. So yeah, I think you're still in it. Yeah, well done. You're living the dream.
Absolutely.
So Charme, we've said you're a teacher, which is great. And we're all very grateful for teachers, especially as parents. So tell us a little bit about everything else that you do and how you juggle that with teaching, because teaching is a full-time profession. So yeah, tell us how you do it all.
I think it's really tough to say that I do it all when I really feel like you don't always have all the balls in the air. I think that as a juggler in the circus, you always learn that all the balls won't always be in the air. So sometimes I feel like I'm a better mom than I am a wife, and sometimes I'll be a better photographer than I am a writer. And sometimes those things are all up in the air at the same time. So I think as jugglers of these many balls that we have to do, sometimes you drop balls and you have to pick them up again and just carry on doing them, because I think it's really important to note some people think when you do more than one thing that you can just do it all, and you really can't. Actually, not at all. Like, you just figure it out along the way. But I am Charme. I am a mom to two cute kids. Diane, my son, is 2 years old, and my daughter is turning 6 in 2 weeks' time.
Wow.
And I am a wife to my husband, Francois, and he's in the Navy. And then I am a full-time teacher, a high school teacher. I teach Afrikaans. So if an Afrikaans word slipped through, I apologize. So I do teach Afrikaans. I'm subject head as well. So I head up the department of 8 other teachers at Fisher. But I taught at other schools before, like Wynberg Girls and Bergfleet High School. And then for the last 4 years, I've done photography. So I take lifestyle, weddings, families, portraits, engagements, maternity shoots, newborns, that sort of thing. So I do that, and I blog about mommyhood. It's an Afrikaans blog, so a lot of your viewers will probably not be interested, but it's called Twee Kinders Later.
No, I'm sure you
And
can
I
press
started
the.
blogging.
Oh, sorry. I'm just saying you can always press the translate button on Google anyway. So
Yeah, it will.
whatever.
So I started blogging about my daughter's birth. My daughter was born at 28 weeks.
Ooh.
And she was 850 grams, and we had her in a public hospital because of healthcare. And the whole journey of going through the prematurity and the NICU and all of that, I had to write that out of my system. And I blogged about it, and it drew quite a big audience. And then 3 years down the line from starting the blog, I was approached by a publisher to write it into a book. And now I have this beautiful copy of my own book, which is super exciting. And that was published last year in September.
Congrats.
Thank you. And and then after the book, now I do all kinds of other things like motivational speaking, inspirational talks, videos, that sort of thing, for moms in similar positions, but also just I'm a Christian, so there is some spiritual things that I believe happened during our journey. So I talk about the miracles and the joys and the fears of being a mom in today's society and the pressure. So there's quite a few things there. So it's teacher, photographer, author, a speaker, blogger, mom, wife, person, human, like woman somewhere in all of that. Friend, yeah, you call it.
Oh my word, that is a lot. That is a lot. And in terms of where you're at as a mom of little children, like a 2-year-old is little. I mean, my eldest is now 9, and a 2-year-old child actually might make me quite fearful if I had one.
My husband jokes with me at least once a week about having another child, and I'm like, dude, look at this one. Like, there's no way. Like, no.
That's not even a joke. You don't have jokes.
No, it's not like a joke at all. I'm like, no. This is not funny.
We don't make jokes like that. So I mean, there's a lot going on in your world in terms of caring for these little people, and there's also this amazing book. Congratulations! I also write and self-publish, so I know how much hard work goes into a book. So I really hope your book goes from strength to strength. That's fantastic. Is it in Afrikaans and English?
No, it's an Afrikaans publisher. Yeah. So NBA Uitgewers is an Afrikaans publisher. So it's only in Afrikaans. But okay. A lot of my friends asked for it in English. But I unfortunately can't translate it all. It's my heart, and my heart is Afrikaans. So when I wrote it out, I don't know how to say my heart out in English. I can't do that. It's like bleh.
I totally get that. I sometimes use Afrikaans words in an English sentence. And because I come from Joburg, you can't translate it. In Joburg, Afrikaans is more easily swapped in to English speakers. You know, people will in Cape Town, it's quite, people might look at you funny when you throw in some Afrikaans words if you're speaking to another English person, and you kind of go.
In the south, in this area, yes, but in the northern suburbs it's very normal, but in the deep south it's like Afrikaans is a different planet. Exactly. Like weird.
It's completely not used, and I'm like, you know, like propvol is like a beautiful word, you know, like full up. You can't say it in English, it sounds stupid. So I'm always surprised at so language is such an interesting dynamic. I'm sure someone will pick up your book and want to translate it in English. So fingers crossed, hang in there. There is someone out there who will do this for you. So so as I said, you've got this book, which is a birth in itself, in my opinion. And that's exciting. And now you've got to shove this kid out into the world. So good luck. That's fantastic. And then you've also got a beautiful photography business, which links so nicely in terms of working with people and women, and especially pregnant women, and I'm sure new families and all of that, kind of capturing those moments. Oh, wow. So this is a fantastic business. I really am excited about all the things that you are doing. The one thing I wanted to ask you about was, though, in the beginning you said it's like being that juggler and having those balls in the air. And luckily balls, when you drop them, they bounce. So, I kind of like to think of businesses like that. Some do, the ones that'll stick at least. And so how do you manage all these things in that juggling sense? So try and explain to us how you manage to keep these things alive, but obviously some get more attention now and then.
I get so really little sleep to start off with, and lots of coffee. But I think I'm a very stubborn person, or I don't think, I know I'm a very stubborn person. And once I've decided I want to make a success out of something, I work my ass off to get it done, because I don't like to stay, I couldn't do it. I've always been like that, very driven with regards to my competitive spirit in that sense. So if I put my head to it, I hate failing. It's something, I hate disappointing people. I'm a bit of a pleaser. So it's actually like, if I get negative criticism, sometimes it goes very deeply to heart. So I think that's my base, to start off with saying that's my personality. It's who I am. It's who I've always been. And then I think for me, I made many mistakes along the way, and I'm currently making one right now, probably. So it's not like everything is perfect, but it is, for me, I prioritize different things at different times. So right now, when my children are inside, they're probably like burning the house down with my husband. I'm prioritizing this. So we have to sometimes go like, what is more important? Right. And I feel like I, for example, used to prioritize only school and did the photography only when I had time, and then it grew into something significantly bigger, and now I have to prioritize that. So during lockdown, I spent a lot of time building my brand, and I spent a lot of time, when I had the time, to plan my social media feeds and to fix my website up and to do different things that I never get the time to do. So it is that when I didn't have school, I could prioritize that. Right. But I feel, and that's probably speaking to all parents, but I feel like as a parent, I always try to prioritize my children first. And that's hard, because that leaves you sometimes right at the back end of all this prioritizing, and we end up not looking after ourselves. So for me, I sort of stick with my children and what is important to them. So I found, for example, that on Sundays, I used to take photos on a Sunday. It would be great income to just get that extra packet of sweets that week, or to have my daughter go into gymnastics, or to have supper somewhere. And then I realized that our whole family dynamic started sort of the blurred lines, and things got demacard, and we needed to have a little bit of a structure. So I don't do shoots on Sundays anymore, and never. So since I've made that decision, when somebody asks, and I've had people that go like, I can only shoot on a Sunday, and I'll be like, I'm sorry, I do not shoot on Sundays. And some people respect that decision, but I've lost business with regards to that, and that's okay, because it's a decision that I made to prioritize my family. I think school is a very structured system, in the fact that sometimes we're busier than others. As a language teacher, marking load is huge. So people that don't know teachers, I teach 150 to 200 children, and I get in 3 papers for each of those things, and one of the papers are 3 different essays. So with regards to marking, you're sitting with big amounts of marking during certain times of the year. Same as for sport. I'm a netball coach, for example, or if you do a manager of a team, I can't prioritize my photography and my school career, in the fact that I have to be at the interschools or the derby day. I can't not be there. Yes. So sometimes the schedule prioritizes itself, in the fact that I can't do something during that season that's so busy. Holidays for me, I always run a special for photography, because I have time. So therefore I can boost during my holiday season, and do 3 or 4 more shoots where I would normally not have that time. Right. With regards to the writing, I pretty much write in the middle of the night when I have an idea. So yeah, I will sometimes sit up and my husband will be like, what are you doing? And I'll be like, just hang. I just need to write this out. So I write a lot at night, and then I am very easily inspired by things around me. So I will be inspired by something that happened during the day, or something that happened at night, and something that happened at school. And sometimes I will walk around with this inspiration or this feeling on my heart and just not have the time to blot it down. So I will take my phone and just make a little memo, because it'll be like, oh, I need to compare this with this, and then I'll quickly write it down. And then when I get there, eventually I will write down the feelings. And sometimes it's lost, and I don't even save it, and sometimes I can still capture it. But I think, as I said earlier, you can't do all things at all times. I think there's seasons for things. And I also know that the reason why I'm juggling all these balls now is because my future looks different to my realities right now. So where I'm going is different from where I am now. And if I want to get there,
Yes.
the more balls need to be in the air. So yeah.
That's very interesting. Okay, so I love that statement. My future is different to my current reality. And so you're juggling now. Okay, so I want to get into that. That's very exciting for me. So is that because you have a future vision of where you're going and what that might look like, and so perhaps a goal, or are you just kind of what I often refer to as planting lightning rods? So I'd heard a great podcast about this guy who was in the movie business, and you know, those guys, it's like it's often, you know, making loads of money, making no money. And so he would say that you should just put all these lightning rods into the ground and eventually one will strike. And so I'm trying to understand if you have a specific plan, or you're just putting those rods out and seeing what's going to take.
I think both in different ways. I've never heard the lightning rod one. I quite like that. But I definitely have a goal. Financially, we grew up not being very wealthy, neither did my husband. So we come from families where you've always had to work hard to get what you want. Nothing was ever handed to us on a silver platter, not even a bronze platter, maybe wood. But that sort of, you had to deal with what you got. And so I think both of us, my husband and I, both want, for example, to pay our house off. And we both want to be financially secure. And we both want to be able to live a better life than what my parents could possibly get, like sort of what they gave us. And that's probably one of the big reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing, is that I want that type of financial freedom. So even though I'm not driven by money, I'm driven by lifestyle, yes. If that makes sense. Yeah. So I would like one day, my mom, for example, and I love her dearly, and she made many sacrifices for us. But she dropped me off at school at 7 a.m, and she couldn't always be there when I needed her at school. And we were one of those, and it made me the person that I am today. So in a way, I'm very grateful. But I want to be at my children's sports matches one day. I want to be able to drop them off at cricket or ballet or whatever they want to do. I want to have that with them. So that's something that I've always wanted as a mom. So I think in a way, I'm driven by that goal. I never thought that I would work for myself. I'm a bit of a pissy. I'm a bit of a scary cat. So when it comes to that, I think it's not something that I wanted to be like when I go, I want to work for myself. I want to have my own company. That's not something that I ever thought I would do. But I think to have the freedom in order to be a better mother and to fulfill that sort of lifestyle that I want, I think I need to do what I do now. So in a way, yes, I'm doing the lightning bolt thing and hoping that it will be enough. But also I believe that you can't just stick a lightning bolt in and leave it. Like you have to water that seed or whatever. You have to put effort into that. So my book was a complete fluke of chance. Like, I never thought I would be a writer ever. Just like I never thought I would be a teacher. Like, my principal at school said, you're going to be a teacher one day, you will make such a great teacher. And I was like, no, dude, I'll never teach in my life. And then at my first athletics event, I had to see him standing there, and he was like, oh, so what are you doing here? I thought you would never teach. And yeah, the same as writing. My mother used to write my essays for me at school. I was never good enough with writing. And now I have a published book. So it's not like I woke up one day and I'm like, I'm going to be a writer. It's just I lived my life the way I live my life. And what came out of that grew into something else. Yeah, so I believe that you get handed a set of talents and you have to work with that. You can't just leave it. It's not going to become bigger. It's not going to change into anything. So in that way, yes. And in the other way, no. Yeah. I don't know if that even answers your question.
No, it absolutely does. Because in some of the previous interviews when I've chatted to people, they've focused on more, say have had a career or a job and then have wanted to leave that and explore their truth, for lack of a better term, and to grow a business out of that. And I feel like you're probably on that journey at the moment, which is very exciting because, I'm going to be able to interview you, hopefully, because my podcast will carry on forever. I'll be hopefully able to interview you in like a year or two, and I'm sure a lot will have changed. And I
did a course the other day on finding your purpose, and I found it so difficult to do that because at this exact stage in my life, I'm still a teacher and a photographer and a this and a this and a this, and I know that at some point I have to streamline that a little bit more. I don't think I'll ever just be a one-person job, but I do need to align my focus to be a full-time income. And it's weird when you're not quite sure, because I don't want to stop teaching because I am a teacher, and I don't want to stop photography because I'm a photographer, and I'm good at both. And it's like, yeah, you're still juggling between that.
That's exactly it. And when I left, kind of employment in the ad industry, I would pull back and start a business, and then they would come back to me and say, oh, don't you want to just consult on this little thing? And then I would get drawn back in, and then I'd pull back and try and do something else, and then I'd get pulled back in. And there's a lot of that thing where you know how to do something and you actually do enjoy that thing, but there's more, and it's this push-pull thing. So yes, for me, I would say, like, to you and to anybody out there who's exploring other income streams outside of their day job, that you've kind of just got to go with the flow. It will work itself out for you. All of a sudden,
I also am a big believer in opening and closing of doors. So if it's not meant to be, it won't. It will close. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes it slams in your face. Yeah. So then you really know. But but for the rest of it, it is that kind of push-pull, which is quite interesting. So I love that you are exploring all these different avenues. And I think it really comes from, my guess is that it comes from your sense of, your sense of inspiration. You seem like an inspired person, which maybe sounds like a strange thing to say, but stuff affects you, and then you kind of put it in your head, turn it around, and it comes out in photography, a writing, a blog, whatever it may be, but that thing that hits you, and then you have to get it out of your head. And for me, writing is always a form of therapy and understanding of yourself and of the world. And so I totally get that, staying up late and writing. My husband will also say, what are you doing? And I'm like,
can you just go to bed?
Stuff. So that's great. I love that has happened, and it seems all quite organic, in the sense that your blog, which was something you felt you needed to do, turned into an income stream with the books and the talks. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sorry, what's also pretty cool for me is that I didn't go searching for these things, and I think that was important to me. as I said, I'm a little scared and a little reserved when it comes to sort of jumping out there, because I'm so scared. It sounds ridiculous, but I'm so scared of not being able to pay the bills. And I'm still scared today. That's why I haven't left teaching, because I want that sort of set things that are happening and I can rely on. And I think to me, what was cool is when I wrote the blog, for example, I never planned on making it public. I just wrote the blog because I needed to write it out. And then a friend of mine said, please, can you share it with me? I want to read it. And then she shared it with somebody, and then it became public. And then I'm getting paid for it all of a sudden. And I'm writing articles and I'm doing these things. And it's like, it wasn't asked for, but I do, as I said, as a Christian, I believe in God's way, and I believe in being obedient. And sometimes when he just opens something up and you, like, I was very scared to write my book because my book is very raw. It's very much, I'm talking about my birth process and the process of becoming a mother and the fears and the emotions. And I'm a tough cookie. Like, I don't show my emotions too much other than joy. It's like, it's opening up a lot of emotions. And it was a tricky thing for me to say, okay, cool, do the book. But I'm so glad I did, because it opened up all these other things. And now I'm like, yeah, I love speaking. I never knew I would do that. I love speaking in general, but now I like speaking to an audience. So it's all these things that I never knew. And if I wasn't obedient and if I didn't allow it to happen in my life at the time, it probably would have never led to where I am today.
Yeah. But yeah, it comes from that inspiration, that inspired place, that desire to create something that comes from within and was needed very much in the world. People need to hear those stories, you know, moms that have had preemies, you know, have gone through similar experiences. That is what connects us, is those stories that we need to hear. And of course you like standing in front of people and speaking. Hello, you're a teacher. Remember the circus child.
I know.
I love it. Okay, so tell us, in terms of all these businesses, what have you found is critical to managing them? So, I mean, you know, you've got the photography business that requires scheduling, etc., invoicing, blah. You know, you've got this kind of mom, speaker, writer kind of role. There must be scheduling and invoicing issues happening there. So what are the things that are critical to these similar but different businesses?
I think a lot about everything is linked to me, and that's sometimes a little overwhelming, but you become your business. So my photography business is not like maroon photography, it's Charme Photography, it's my name. The book, it's my name. My teaching, I'm Mrs. Creel, it's your name. And I think it becomes central to the fact that what's holding all of these things together is you, and in this case me as a person. So my sort of professionality, is that even a word?
I don't know.
So, I don't know. The way you handle yourself is key in all of those aspects. So I believe that I am who I am. I don't sugarcoat. I'm very real. I'm very authentic. So I say it like it is. And I do that with my clients, whether I'm teaching them in class. I'm not that teacher that's distant, that stands back. I'm the one that the kids inappropriately come and talk to all about their secrets and all the things. Like, I'm that teacher. And as a photographer, I'm that photographer. I capture the real you. We laugh, we joke. It's not that let me stand back and you stand like this and this and this and this and this. It's very relaxed. It's very open. And that's the same in my writing. I do it in a very relaxed style, even though if I know the proper Afrikaans word, but that's not what I would use when I speak. I will say the English word in my Afrikaans sentence in my book. So, for example, because that's how I speak. And I'm not going to be different in the way that I write. So I feel like in all of those different aspects, I have remained true to who I am. And even though at 36 nearly, I'm still figuring that out. But I feel like my inner truth, the figuring out who you really are, I'm not trying to fake it at all. And I think that's crucial if you are running a business with your name on it. I think if I'm working if I'm working for another company, you become that corporate identity. But if you are the corporate identity, you are very much the center that's holding it all together. And people pick up very quickly if your heart is not in it. And I think my heart is in all of these places, and it's sometimes difficult. But I believe that if your heart is in something, then you can only be good at it. So yeah, that's
Absolutely. Oh, I want to frame that. Like, if your heart isn't in it, everyone can see. And it's so true. And I'm just thinking to that earlier comment that you made around how you've set that boundary of, I don't work on Sundays. And there are people who respect that, and people who say, well, actually, you know, that isn't going to work for me. I'm going to go somewhere else. And if you broke your rule for people and worked on a Sunday, you'd be thinking about your family at home, and your heart wouldn't be in it. And so
and
it's
the photos would show.
yeah, exactly. The photos would show, exactly. My mother always said to me, photographs never lie, you know. So
And the photographer's mood, if you are not in a happy place as a photographer, and a lot of people don't get this, but photographers is so in tune with their own emotions. So I, for example, when I go to a shoot, I tune the radio on a certain station, and I listen to different stations depending on the mood that I need to create. So if I'm going to a romantic shoot and I'm not feeling particularly romantic, say I just had a fight with my husband, I need to get into the vibe, because you can't shoot romance if you're not feeling it. And that's a weird, or I can't shoot. Some photographers, I suppose, can just switch it off, but I'm a very much a passionate person when it comes to that. So I listen to like 5FM if I'm doing like a hip happening shoot, and I'm listening to KFM if I'm doing a family shoot, and I'm listening to like all these different things, because I need to get into that feeling. And when I climb out of the car with my camera, I'm not just clicking a button. I have to be like, yes, let's create this mood, because sometimes, especially in men, they don't like being photographed. So you have to capture that and get them to be comfortable, and you need to be in the right headspace to be able to create that.
oh,
So
yeah, and that, isn't that the truth, I think, in everything. So, you know, just kind of going back to what you said about authenticity, and that being your critical element to your business, going back to that, keeping true to that needs to shine true. And in order for you to maintain that, whether you're having a good day or a bad day, you need to work on yourself in order to ensure that your shoot is going to have the right feel. So yeah, you could have fought with husband, but you're going to do something to try and improve your mood, to make your client's experience magical, so that they have that real experience, you know, end to end. So that's really clever. And yeah, look, I'm a 5FM fan. I know I am definitely, I'm double the age of their target market. So whatevs, hey? Whatevs. So tell us, what is your favorite hack for running your business?
yes, it's very different for different things, but something that I use for all of them, I use Canva a lot. I don't know if you know Canva, but it's the pre-designed software, and I use it all the time. Like, I just designed Corona posters for school and a whole infographics for school, and people are going like, wow, Charme, that's amazing. And I'll be like, yeah, but actually it was like 15 minutes on Canva and it was free. So it is it makes something really simple very professional very quickly. So by a few clicks, and you're changing things, and if you've got a little bit of creativity and a little bit of time to figure it out, you can really make it your own. So I enjoy that. I like working with the templates and then changing it completely so that it becomes yours. So Canva is really amazing. And then I was only introduced to this last year, and I don't know why. I didn't know about this, but this software called Wave, I don't know if you know Wave, but it is awesome. So like, especially for photography, I suck at accounting, like big time suck. I am a languages person. My brain can only function in that way. So I don't do finances at all very well. So with Wave, you just take a photo of the slip and it stores it in the right place. And when you have to do your tax, it's all there and you don't have to worry about searching for things. So I use it a lot for invoicing. I use it for just whenever I've got a camera repaired, I just take that photo and it stores it, it scans it, it's there, and I can lose the slip, because I don't know anybody in business. Losing slips is like something I do like on a daily basis, and that just saves it all, and it saves it in cyberspace, and it's there, and I don't even know how all those fancy things up here work in the cloud, but it's there, and even if my phone gets stolen, I can still access it. So yeah, that's like next level technology, even though for me it's probably a little bit slow, and some people might have great other initiatives, but on my level, that is what I need. So Canva is amazing, and Wave.
I think those are great tips, because in terms of business, I also use Canva a lot, because otherwise you would need, especially for social media and stuff like that, you'd need to be having a conversation with the designer daily, and and paying a lot of money. So yeah, we love Canva. And then I think I'm going to go actually look Wave up, because I think I'm still in the dark ages on accounting. And
well, I didn't know about it either. And then this guy at school was like, "Oh, you just use this," and I was like, "What?" Blown away. So very cool.
Great. Okay, cool. And so how do you tell people about all these different services that you offer, all these different businesses? Because, you're probably wearing lots of hats. And so who do you tell what to about what? How do you do all of that?
I think it's really tough. Maybe it's just in our nature, but I think Afrikaans people don't like to talk about themselves as much in a professional field. I don't know, if we're at a braai and you go, "What do?" You pick the one that is most like easiest explained. So it will always, in the past, I would have been just like, "I'm a teacher." And I think because you don't want to outshine anybody. I think it's just the way we were brought up. You have to be like, everybody must fit in this little box, and you can't just now you say 3 things and then people go like, "Wow," and then you don't want that type of attention on you. So I think it is still something that I'm figuring out. I only recently started saying that I'm a writer. The word writer is still, or author, it doesn't fit well with me. It's like, what do you do? I'm an author. Like, oh, people think that you wear dark clothes and you sit in a coffee shop with glasses, and like that's what you do if you say that. And people don't get that you can do that and other things. It's quite confusing to them in their brains. I think they want to place you in these boxes, and when you're multiplying those boxes, some people go like, "Oh yeah, she obviously never gives attention to her husband," or "Oh, shame, her poor children," or like, "When does she do anything?" And I think it's a misconception in the way that I was brought up. And therefore we're so aware that other people might say that. And we're very, very insecure about what people say about us. That said, most of my business, all of it, photography, author, teaching, is because of word of mouth. I think word of mouth is the most powerful thing, especially for the type of personality that I have. I believe that my personality sells me. I worked in a marketing company for a tourism company in the marketing department, and you sell the product because of your personality, or you sell, at the moment I'm selling Afrikaans to these English mongrels because of my personality. So they will never like the language if it's not for the way you bring it to them. And I think we underestimate that because we are too afraid to sound boastful. And I'm always very scared of that. So when I say it, even in my head right now, I went like, no, don't say that, like slap on the hand, because you always have to like keep a little back. So word of mouth is number one. And the way that people experienced you and your product sells. So people don't always write reviews, and they don't always go onto social media. They will ask a friend, and I do exactly the same. Who took your photos? They were beautiful. Or who can you recommend for this? Or I need somebody to speak at my Mother's Day tea at church. Like, who can I ask? It's that word of mouth thing. And I believe in that like wholeheartedly. I do use obviously other platforms. So I use a lot of Facebook and Instagram. I quite like Instagram because it links the two.
Yeah.
I don't Twitter, tweet, whatever. I think it's just too many things. So I prefer to sort of streamline to something that I find quite easy. With the photography, it's really easy to Instagram because it's a visual source. But yeah, I do combine the writing and the photos, especially during lockdown, for example. I took photos of a lot of my kids, and the writing part would then be attached to the photos and the inspiration that I found or drew from their playful activity or whatever. So I think the two of them can go hand in hand, which is quite nice. So yeah, so I do really still believe in the people approach, the human approach. So I've survived 4 years of photography business. I've shot many weddings without having a website, for example, because people trust their friends, and people trust when they speak to you and what they find about your personality that they like or that they connect with. So I still am very much a person that believes in the human interaction part of life, even though we're moving all the way into these fourth revolution or whatever we want to call it. But I still really believe in people and that human quality.
Well, I think even in this digital space, referral is that word of mouth thing counts for so much. If it didn't, you wouldn't have things like Uber or things like Airbnb. That is built off a referral system. Sure, they may be not your friends, but I know if I go onto an Airbnb and I look at a place and someone said XYZ, I'm like, no, definitely not. You know, and so you trust what other people have said. Which is a ridiculous thought if you think about it in the digital world, because people can lie, or people can put up their own reviews or whatever it is. But that is the true state of things. And I think in terms of your business, photography is so personal. I would also only, choose a photographer based on a referral of someone I knew or had seen their photos. And of course, that definitely is almost a no-brainer, And
I think for me, like newborn photography, for example, you go into their house a week after they've had a baby. Like you want to be comfortable with that person. The same as on a wedding. Your photographer's there when you're naked getting dressed, and you have to be comfortable with that person. And that photographer is with you longer than your future husband is on that day. So you do really need to have a good relationship with that person, and you do need to trust and be okay with the person's personality. You don't want to have somebody in your space that you don't get on with. Like, I would hate that, to have that on a wedding day. So.
Yeah. No, and wedding photos. I could talk for hours. Everyone has. I would almost want to say like 5 out of 10 people have horrific wedding photo stories. So if you are one of those good photographers out there doing the right thing, yay for you. So that's a good thing. So with all these businesses, what are some of the main, or maybe they haven't been, but any failures that stand out and have then subsequently changed how you move forward, that you feel other people could also learn from without having to fail first?
Okay, so I have no business background at all. Okay, so I studied languages and psychology, so I can understand people a little, but that's pretty much where it stops. And then, so on the business end, I'm still learning like a hell of a lot all the time. Things like legal documentation when it comes to having contracts in place. I didn't have a contract. What's that? Like, I'm just taking photos of somebody. Like, why must I have a contract? I never even thought of that because I never went to photography school. I YouTube videos until I figured something out, and then I took photos of my kids until I got it right. There's never been a how to do this. And because I didn't have that business experience, I think my failures have been small, because I didn't rely on it as my full income, because I always had this fallback of a teacher to cover the bases. I remember very clearly one of my clients when I started taking photos, for example, let's just go with the photography field now. But when I started taking photos, I didn't realize that I wasn't marketing towards my ideal client. I was marketing to get photo shoots. So I would make my price ridiculously cheap because that way people would book me. And that's not how the business world works. I never realized that. Now I know that I have to market to who I want to photograph. So I marketed cheapest package I could put together because I just wanted to build a portfolio. I just wanted to take photos of people. And you really get, how do I say this without sounding wrong? Like hillbilly people, like not my ideal client would book me because my photo shoot is $100 or whatever it was. I can't even remember. And their expectations were ridiculous in my eyes. To them, it was a normal expectation. But this one guy, for example, had a very big tattoo on his whole arm. And when he got his photos afterwards, he said, "Can I please edit them all out?" Now, if you give somebody 80 to 100 photos to remove a tattoo that is nearly a full sleeve, like that takes a lot of time. And for a very budget photographer, I couldn't do that to validate my time, even though I could probably edit it out. But that's not my style. It's not the type of photos I do. He also wanted me to make his wife skinnier. And I'm like, that goes against everything that I believe in. So I realized by it's like people. I realized that it's failing a little at that. That I needed to have legal things in place. So now I have a contract, and in my contract it says I will edit blemishes and skin tone and color, but I do not edit features and things like that. So there's a clause in my contract that covers that. The same as things like asking permission to post somebody's photos. Like I always ask that verbally. Now it's in my contract because I just need to know that if something would ever go wrong, that it's covered for. So I think my failures have been really minimal in the fact that I didn't rely on photography to be my main income and it blew up in my face, and that would be a failure in my eyes. These small things are just learning curves and figuring it out. I think the same with writing. Not everybody's going to like your style. Not everybody's, you pick up a book and I might love it and you might hate it. And that's the beauty of both photography and writing, and actually teaching. It's either for you or it's not for you. Like I have some teachers that I love, and somebody else hates that teacher. And I think that's quite cool about all the areas that I work in. It's either you like it or you don't because of a personal style. So in that way, I've been pretty fortunate, I would say. Not too hectic.
And I think there's failures are also something, maybe, as you said right in the beginning, I think you mentioned that failing was an issue for you. In terms of your personality. So I think you probably work quite hard not to fail. And so I think that those small failures are as a result of your conscientious approach to your work. So that's probably how it will be. But great in terms of when you're setting up a business, think about the contracts. And unfortunately, you often only don't know what you don't know until someone comes and says, take my tattoo off my arm or make my wife skinnier. Horror upon horror.
But I think also you don't like, I would never ask that of a photographer. Never even thought that there would be such a client out there. Nobody's ever asked it again, but it is in my contract. So at least I know they won't ask it, because if they would read it, it'll be fine.
Exactly. And my theory is if one asks, there's another one out there. So rather put it in the contract. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so what would be your advice for someone who wants to maybe start a side hustle? So maybe they find they are in the same situation as you. They've got a job, but they are curious to start something of their own. What would be your advice?
Oh, so many. Advice is something my husband and I always joke about it, because people always talk about parenting and they'll be like, what's your parenting advice? And we hate that, because it's so different for every person. I think advice needs to be based out of values and your core and what that involves. So I always believe that if you do something that you love, you don't have to love it every day. I definitely do not love every day of my work, but I love the occupation of being a teacher and having that relationship with my kids. Then if the majority of what you do gives you joy and pleasure, then that is where you need to be. And sometimes, and that's where my problem comes in, I have a lot of things that give me joy. I have a lot of things that I like to do. And then it's okay to be good at some things and others not, but it's tricky when there's more than one thing that you're averagely good in. And you go like, okay, crap, now what? But I think if there's something that you don't like, or you do it for a year, I did photography for a year just to see whether I would like it. So stuck to my day job, just tested the waters. And now 4 years in, I'm like, okay, great. This is amazing. I love doing this. I've bought new cameras. I spent a fortune, loving it. But it's because I enjoy it so much. So you need to do something that you enjoy. And it sounds so stupid because everybody always says that. But that to me is the best advice that anybody can give you. You need to love what you do. So that heart that was in it that we spoke about earlier, that heart really needs to be there, and it needs to be red and round and go doof, doof, doof. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Yeah, it's crazy. And then something that I still struggle with sometimes is that if you are married or if you are living in a family, you can't just go on your own little mission. You can't just go, okay, cool, I want this as my goal and I'm going to do this. That's not going to work. You have to talk about it, and you have to realign, or align, not realign, just align your goals and your visions as a family. Because I think mine changed with the birth of my second child, for example. I thought of one thing and then it changed a little and it adapted. And I think if you happen to be very, very rich and very, very wealthy, and you can just go like, oh, whoops, that was a suck. Oh, no, never mind, that wasn't right. Then great. But for most of us, and I think most people in businesses, especially now during Corona, you're hanging on for dear life. And if you are doing something that the rest of your family are not approving of, or you cannot put boundaries in place to make it work, then it won't work. And I think I sometimes feel that my husband is holding me back. And that's a good thing, you know. Even as sometimes I experience it as a bad thing, but he's very paper cut finance boy, and he does like, okay, we can't do it now because if you have a bad month, this will happen. And I actually need that to say, hey, just hold on a little, just stick it out for another year or two. And I think if you don't talk about it as a family or as a couple or as whatever you are, you can't move forward if you don't align it with the rest of the vision of the family. So our vision, for example, is to one day move to a small little town and have a bigger yard and have a house that's bigger and a lifestyle that's different than city life. And we can only afford that once we are financially secure in settling our house debt. So we have spoken about that, and we have these small little things in place in order to get to where we want. But if we don't talk about it, we're going to go into different directions and not support each other in the way that we need to support each other. Yeah. So that.
Yes. Yes. Communication for everything, isn't it? And I think that is so true, especially if you're in a relationship, you know, and you're trying to build your side hustle. One can become so caught up in the excitement of that thing that you forget all about the people you living with. And I really do get that. And it's so important to reconnect and say, okay, cool, wait, are we on the same path? Do we see, you know, the same vision at the end of the day?
Sorry, small things like with the wedding photography, I could have jumped straight into that. And I would have liked to jump straight into that and book a wedding every weekend. But as a teacher, I won't see my kids. When am I going to see my kids if I'm doing editing on Sundays in the evenings and marking and all of that? So I had to hold back a little, and I'm booking one wedding a term as a maximum because I can't do that more if I still want to have a family life. And I think if it would be awesome to book 7 weddings in a month, great, but I can't do that in the space that I'm in right now with my relationship. So sorry.
Yeah, no, and that's the truth, you know. We'd all love to be able to say, you know, oh, I can just jump into something and do it, but there's always consequences. And it's that balance, that juggle, especially as a mom with small kids. And it's about trying to manage it as best as possible without giving that thing up. So sure, yeah, oh, okay, 1 wedding a month, but you know, you've got to make that sacrifice, but at the same time keep your business going. And people will want to have you for sure, you know, to be their photographer. They'll work around that, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fantastic advice. I think that will definitely help people, because I've spoken to so many people, and so many people really lean heavily on their partners in the sense of either, you know, creating a strategy for their business, in accounting, in setting up finances, in discussing ideas. So yeah, it's great advice. So thank you.
The last advice, actually,
Yes.
I just need to say this because I have so many students that believe that you're going to be a blogger if you have written 6 things and everything's going to fall in your pocket. So I need to say this as a teacher. You have to work very hard. That's the biggest advice, probably. Success to like 1% of the world just falls in their hands. You need to work your ass off. If you want to be successful, you got to put in the hours, and that's sometimes to sacrifice of myself. So like, I wash my hair way too little, and I don't really care about my health too much at the moment because I don't have time for that, because it's a decision I've made. But you have to, if you want to be successful, you cannot rely on like your 10 followers to do anything. You have to actually work consistently at a brand to be anyway successful.
Absolutely.
So,
there is no quick fix.
Teach is always there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that little like learning, because you know, with the millennials, we are often, you know, a lot of people go, oh, they just think you walk into a job and become the CEO. And unfortunately, a lot do think that, unfortunately. But the reason they think that is that, well, maybe their parents haven't explained anything to them, or maybe we as the world have told them that is a possibility, when actually it really isn't. And so people think, oh yeah, okay, I'll be a YouTuber, and then I'll have lots of followers, and I'll sell advertising, and it'll be amazing. Yeah, well, you can't get YouTube followers, you can't get any advertising until you have 1,000 people who subscribe to your YouTube channel. Gosh, how do you get to 1,000 people subscribing to your channel?
I always joke with my kids, because every matric learner that is like a little naughty would be like, oh no, I'm going to be a rapper one day, or I'm going to be this. And I'm like, dude, like, okay, cool. And then I always joke with them in class saying, like, most of you with these very dreams that you're not willing to work for end up being waiters. And then it's always these children that say to me, ma'am, I will never waiter, I'm going to be famous, that I see 5 years down the line and they're serving me at the coffee shop or the restaurant. So the reality is that if you want to be famous, you have to work to be famous. It's not just going to fall in your pocket. And I'm not famous, so I'm not working hard enough yet.
No, I think you're working pretty damn hard. So don't work any harder. You're gonna like burn yourself out. That's the other end of that. My mother always said to me, you burn the candle at both ends, you know, and it'll never change. But that's the thing. That's like, well, yeah, when I don't need to, or when I don't want to, then I'll stop burning that candle at both ends. But it's that personal drive, that desire to do. So yeah, for all those youngsters out there, get your working
insert.
Yeah, exactly. Get your working shoes on. And tell us finally, Charme, where can everyone get hold of you?
Okay, so it depends on what you want to get hold of me for. If you just want to talk about my teaching, which very few people want to get hold of me for, but if you wanted to, you could possibly get hold of me at school, at Fishhoek High School. But then also, I mean, my telephone number and my email address is pretty readily available because of my other businesses.
Right.
So for speaking events, which is really something my heart is in, I really believe that that is where I'm going towards. Corona just put like spanner after spanner after spanner in that idea, but I'm going to be speaking at events, and I can't wait at more events, and I can't wait for that. So yeah, for speaking events, it would probably be best to email me at charmamma@gmail.com. And then for photography and sort of my blog, the blog would be tweekinderslater.com. And or you just go onto Facebook and Instagram and you search for Charme Kriel and you will find me. And you'll find Charme Kriel Photography, both Instagram and Facebook. I'm just like nitpicking a few things on my website, and then that will be up for the photography page as well. But it's probably easiest just to go to the Instagram page. I'm also waiting for the dollar rate to drop a little before I do that subscribe for a year on my website, so that will be a little bit more cost effective, because at the moment it's a little bit pricey.
Oh yeah, no, tell me about that dollar exchange. It's hideous.
So yeah, find me there. I'm on the world somewhere.
Great. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all your insights, and super exciting in terms of all the things that you are juggling and that are in the air. You have ended up in the circus. No matter what you think, it's just a different one. It's called the circus of life. So thank you so much for chatting to us. And yeah, hopefully we will chat to you in a year or two and find out what lightning rod has blown up.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me, and good luck with this venture. It sounds exciting. So yeah.
Okay. Cheers.
Yeah.